If your dungeon feels like a museum, static. If your setting feels like a board game, factions are the cure you're looking for. Because factions do one thing better than any plot ever will. They make the world move when the players aren't looking. And here's the sneaky part. Factions aren't politics, they're pressure. They're the reason. Like goblins don't just stand in room number 12 waiting to die. They're why the town has rumors that actually go somewhere. They're the reason the party can choose a side or play both sides or burn the whole thing down and run away. Uh, In old school play, we love player choice. Factions are how you pay that off. So, what are we talking about? A faction is it's a group, but they have a goal that they cannot reach alone. They have something that they can trade or threaten with, and they have a problem that forces them to act. You don't need some big lore tome at your table. You don't need a list of noble houses with 17 cousins each. We aren't talking Game of Thrones. What you need is motion. So here's the simplest working definition that I can give you. A faction is what somebody wants plus the means to chase it. If they want something and nothing happens, if they don't get it, that's not a faction. That's scenery. That's fluff. So, whenever you make a faction, whether it's a dungeon, a wilderness, or urban, a city, or town, ask three questions. What do they want? Not what do they believe, not what's their backstory. That's irrelevant. What do they want this week? Okay. What do they have? It could be soldiers, men at arms, gold, information, magic, a monster, a legal charter. I don't know, the only clean well in town or the only fresh water source in the dungeon. How can we never talk about that? But they have something that's real. And what are they afraid of? See, fear puts a clock on it, and a clock makes them act. And action is where the play lives. So write those three answers on an index card. You're basically there. And yes, I talk a lot about index cards. Great way to be organized at your table without carrying a tome around for reference. I love Joe, but I can't bring out much with me. My back will die. Um, Now you've asked you three questions. You need one more thing that makes the pop. Who do they hate? And who do they need? See, that gives you relationships. That gives you friction. That gives you your dungeon ecology without having to do it as a lecture or some college course with the book in front of you. You don't need all that. You just need to know the relationships. So let's say the party's poking around an old ruined keep. On level one, you've got goblins squatting in the old barracks, a small cult in the chapel, and a pair of skeleton patrols that wander the halls because somebody never finished the job in the first place. Right? Okay, well, the lazy way is we've all done this. I will admit, I I've done this at conventions. They fight everything. The faction way is everybody wants something. And the party is a force that nobody can predict. And not even you, the GM. So what do goblins want? All right. Well, they want food and safety. And to stop losing goblins to the ghost patrols. What do they have? Well, they have numbers. They have basic traps, and the best map the first level because they live there. What do they fear? The cult's blessings, which keep showing up as goblins who don't come back. The cult wants a relic that's under the keep and sacrifices, often goblins, to power a ritual. What do they have? They have intimidation, a couple of charmed locals, and a mean leader who can actually bargain. And what do they fear? Exposure. Right? That's a hell of a motivation. If the town connects them to disappearances, the militia could come down hard. And then you have the third faction, or the non-faction, skeleton patrols. They're not really a faction, but they are pressure. They're the hazard both factions have to deal with. So, what happens when a party shows up? The goblins don't rush them like berserkers. A goblin scout watches. A goblin boss thinks these idiots might be useful. And the goblins offer a deal. We show secret door. You kill bone men. You know kill gobos. Deal? And now you're playing old school D&D, right? Because the best treasure in the dungeon might come from a handshake, not a body count. As the party accepts, the goblins guide them around the nasty trap and point them at the skeleton root. And if they refuse, the goblins fall back and start setting ambushes behind the party, not in front of them. If the party slaughters goblins, the cult is thrilled, right up until the party realizes the cult was probably the real problem. And that's the payoff, right? You didn't write a plot. You gave people motives. You put things in motion and let things happen. Now, I understand some people hear factions and they start writing treaties and trade routes. Stop. Don't do it to yourself. You're not running a country. You're running a game table. So here's the trick. You only need 2 faction moves per session. Or I should say 2 faction moves between sessions. So you find 2 factions that would logically act and write down what they do with 1 sentence. So, for example, the cult frames goblins for the missing villagers. Well, that's a whole adventure right there. The goblins steal the chapel key and hide it in the latrine because the goblins are proud of that. 1 sentence each, that's enough to change the dungeon when the party comes back. And when the players do something big, wipe out a leader, steal a relic, start a fire, every party seems to start a fire at some point, your factions react. That's the living world people talk about without you needing to write a novel. The most common faction mistake, however, is this. You make factions that are all the same strength, all the same visibility, all equally available to interact with. And you turn it into a faction buffet table. The party samples a little bit of everything, commits to nothing. Nothing bites back because it's all bland and even. The simple fix is you make the factions uneven. And you make that unevenness matter. How? One faction has muscle, one has money, one has leverage, one is desperate. They shouldn't be balanced. We're not playing 5e. And even if you're using this with 5e, get rid of the idea of balance and make the differences matter. If the party helps the goblins, the cult retaliates. There we go. If the party exposes the cult, well, the goblins lose their enemy. Maybe they turn to banditry. If the party steals the relic, everyone wants them. Some to pay, some to hang. If nothing changes, the players learn their choices don't matter. And if their choices don't matter, they start playing like it's a video game. Clear the level, loot the chest, next, rinse, repeat. You want the opposite. You want them doing the hallway math. If we do this, then they do that. Yeah. If you're running BX or any other OSR old school game that has reaction rolls, you're sitting on the best faction engine ever printed, ever thought of, and half of us forget to use it. Okay? I've done a video on it, but here's why reaction matters for factions. When the party meets a faction group, guards, goblins, guild toughs, you don't have to decide their mood like you're writing a novel. Roll reaction. Let the world surprise you. And a hostile result doesn't have to mean fight. It can mean threaten, shake down, demand tribute, or a bribe, escort you out, call for reinforcements, for more and maybe intimidation. See, that's how factions act. And a friendly result doesn't mean, hey, they're your buddies, let's go drinking. It means we can use you, which is the most honest kind of friendship in a dungeon, right? Morale rolls, same deal. And yes, I've covered them already on this channel. But morale rolls tell you when a faction breaks, retreats, bargains, or tries to live to fight another day. That's how you get recurring enemies, shifting alliances, and consequences that aren't just TPK or nothing. Now, if you want to use factions in next game session, right? Literally, next session, do this. 3 factions, 5 lines each. And I will pin this and I will put this up on the blog side because it's important. Okay, it's a great little template. For the faction card template, name, short. It's got to be usable at the table. And it should be memorable if you can do that. What they want, 1 sentence. What they have, 1 sentence. What they fear, 1 sentence. And what their tell is. How the players will recognize them fast. And then add 1 ally, 1 enemy, and 1 job they pay for. See, now you've got your fuel. Now you've got your pressure. You basically have an adventure generator right there. Now, how about we do a quick outside the dungeon example? Because I know somebody's going to be asking for this, and I don't want to do a whole video on this. Because factions work not just in dungeons, but they work in towns. In town, all right? The Dockside Guild, what do they want? Control of the river trade. What do they have? Money, smugglers, and dirty officials they've bribed. Who do they fear? Well, what do they fear? The Baron's new taxman with honest soldiers. What's their tell? River tattoos and 2 clean boots for dock workers. They have an ally, the innkeeper, who hears everything. The enemy, obviously the taxman. And their job that they want somebody to fulfill is make the taxman disappear for a week. The Temple of the Lantern. What do they want? Purge witchcraft from the old ruins. What do they have? Public trust, healing, and a bell that calls the volunteers. What do they fear? Scandal. 1 ugly rumor, and donations could dry up. And what's their tell? Lantern badges, strict questions, clean hands. Their ally is the taxman, but quietly. Enemy, the smugglers. What job are they looking for? Bring us proof the ruins are cursed. And then the taxman himself. What does he want? To collect enough to keep his job and not get stabbed. There's a balance for him, right? He has legal authority, a few trained men, the Baron's seal. What does he fear? Being alone at night. What's his tell? Sealed papers, ink stained fingers, and a nervous stare. His ally is the temple, his enemy is the Dockside Guild, and the job that he's looking to have fulfilled is escort me to the docks on pay. Now, you drop the party into town. If they help the taxman, the guild hates them, but the temple likes them. If they take the guild's money, the temple starts preaching against them, and the taxman starts looking for charges. If they play it clever, they can set the guild against the temple and potentially walk away with profit and no bruises. At least for now. See, that's faction play. Less lore, more leverage. Now, before I wrap this up, one more addendum, practical rule. I don't want what you want to call it, but factions should be clear, not clever. What do I mean by that? If the players can't tell what a group is about, they can't really play off it. So make the motives obvious and the methods visible. If the Dockside Guild wants control, they bribe, intimidate, and smuggle. If the temple wants purity, they investigate, they preach, they pressure. If the taxman wants to live, he hires muscle, PCs, and keeps records. You don't need to explain it in a speech. You show it in play. A shaken shopkeeper. A sermon that names names without naming names, if you know what I mean. A tax notice nailed to the tavern door. That's how the world talks. That's how the environment reacts. So if you take nothing else from this, take this. Build factions with wants, resources, and fears. Give them relationships. Make 2 moves between sessions and let reaction and morale rolls do some of the heavy lifting. They're great tools for BX and old school gaming. Do that, and your dungeon stops being a static level held in time. Your campaign stops depending on you writing the next thing. And your players start making choices that matter because the world pushes back. If you want more tools like this, hit subscribe. Look for the pinned comment. I'm going to include much of this, and there will be on the blog site, tenkarstavern.com, a full post on this. Take your cheat sheet and enjoy. Thank you, and God bless.